Okay, thank you very much for having me here. I'm blessed to be here, to be in your company. I'm very honored to be talking to you today. And I hope I'll be able to transfer the thoughts of, they're not myself really, like they're more based, what I'm going to talk about is based on Sripad Suhotra Maharaj teachings, based on his book as well that he wrote. It's called, I think it's called Dimensions of Evil and, sorry, can I just move this way? Dimensions of Good and Evil. Can you hear me? Yeah. And I chose, the topic as announced is about the Vedic roots of the Western religions. And I thought this is a very interesting topic because, first of all, it is interesting. Second of all, it's very, very often we come across this in our preaching. And colleagues at work or children at school, sometimes they ask questions and things like that. So it's very important to know where we stand there, because in my heart, I always felt that everything starts from there, from the Vedic scriptures, but I never... Oh, thank you. So in my heart, I knew it somehow, but I never had a chance to actually confirm it somehow. And then also we had this discussion in our Bhagavad Gita class. It's a Russian-speaking class, but this few devotees shared that they have friends who are Catholics or whatever, Protestants, sometimes Jehovah's Witnesses, whatever. Or some colleague would ask a question, or some devotees would actually go to the church because they like the priest and what he's saying. And their message was, you know, it's all right, you know, it's after all, it's all good, it's all God and things like that. And there was one actually Ukrainian devotee, she shared recently, she's staying with a nice person like who offered her house, and she's a refugee, so, and he's Jehovah's Witness, I think. So anyway, she comes to their meetings, and then she finds them interesting, and then recently they asked her to actually go on a preaching activity with her, so that she joins them and helps them to translate, or I don't know what her service is going to be. So she was questioning whether she should actually do that. So anyway, I kind of thought that this topic is appropriate to find out where we stand in this, you know. So anyway, before I start, I chose a nice verse from Bhagavad Gita, from the 9th chapter. It's verse 23. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Yepyanya Devata Bhakta. Yepyanya Bhagavata. Okay, I'll read it myself. Yepyanya Devata Bhakta. Yajante Shrathayan Vitaha. Tepi mam eva kaunteya. Yajantya Vidhi Purvakam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way. Purport. Persons who are engaged in the worship of demigods are not very intelligent, although such worship is offered to me indirectly. Krishna says, for example, when a man pours water on the leaves and branches of a tree without pouring water on the root, he does so without sufficient knowledge or without observing regulative principles. Similarly, the process of rendering service to different parts of the body is to supply food to the stomach. The demigods are, so to speak, different officers and directors in the government of the Supreme Lord. We'll try to say it to a Catholic. One has to follow the laws made by the government, not by the officers or directors. Similarly, everyone is to offer his worship to the Supreme Lord only. That will automatically satisfy the different officers and directors of the Lord. The officers and directors are engaged as representatives of the government, and to offer some bribe to the officers and directors is illegal. This is stated here as avidhi purvakam. In other words, Krishna doesn't approve the unnecessary worship of the demigods. I think in the course of the class you will understand why I chose this particular verse about the demigods and what's the connection with the Western religion. Om Gyanatimiram Dasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Sva Padantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Tanvitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radham Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalitam Shri Vishakha Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshvari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhupyevacha Patitamam Pavanipyo Vaishnavipyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasati Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So as Suhotra Swami Maharaj is saying, he did a lot of research on the subject for his book, and he said that most of the modern scholars, I can't see actually, like that, if I move like that, no? Better? No, I can. Yeah. So modern scholars of the Western comparative religion studies are actually, they explain that all the Western religions, and by Western religions here I mean Judaism, Christianity and Islam, so they all start with Zoroastrian religion. Has anyone heard about Zoroastrian religion? Right, one person. Okay, 2, 3. So Zoroastrian religion practically doesn't exist now. And according to some scholars, it dates back to quite a few thousand years before Christ. So this was a state religion of Persia. So does this country exist now? Persia. Yes. Persia is now Iran. So the name Iran actually comes from the word Aryan. So ancient Persia used to be Arya Desh. So they used to be part of the Vedic civilization. And of course, Persia is right next door to India. Well, you might argue that next door to Persia is Pakistan. But before 1946, actually, Pakistan also was part of India, as you know. And also Afghanistan. Can anyone remember or think of somebody, some character in Mahabharata who came from that country? And I give a hint. Gandhari. Gandhari, that's right. So Gandhari, Shakuni as well, yes. So main characters of Mahabharata, they came from that country, and they still, like, I think the old capital of Afghanistan was Kandahar. So that's so anyway, it was all Vedic civilization, and Persia as well was part of the Vedic civilization. It was Arya-Desh, and they followed the Vedic tradition. Well, their state religion was they were actually sun worshippers. And they have a Brahminic caste also, and the Brahminic caste was called Magis. Can anyone think of the English word? And I give a hint. Magician, that's right. So remember, Jesus Christ was born, and the three wise men, they were called Magis. So they followed the stars, and they came to visit Krishna in Bethlehem and all that. So they were Magis. So Magis in Persia, there were sun worshippers, and there was this Brahminic caste. So, this, in the Vedic scriptures, they're called Maghas. It's actually, it sounds better for the Russian ear. I'm from Russia originally. We call them Magi. Or Mag is a magician, or someone who can know things and perform tricks. So they were worshippers of sun god, of the sun god. And as per the Vedic rules, in fact, actually, when the Muslims invaded Iran, quite a few at the time of these Brahmanas who wanted to keep their religion, they fled to India. And in fact, today, I think it's about a few thousand of them still exist. And they preserve their culture all these thousands of years. I think around Mumbai, there's about a few thousand of them, and they still worship the sun god with fire, a little bit differently than the Indians would do it. But obviously so many years have passed, and they've been separately quite far away. But they still invest their suns with a sacred thread and do things like that. And in India, they're called Parsis. Yeah, so they're Parsis coming from Persia. So, how did this Zoroastrian religion come about? Because we're thinking, okay, Vedic culture, sun worship, everything sounds very familiar. But what happened? And what happened was that among these Magis, among these Brahminic castes, there was this Brahmana, and his name was Zarathustra. We call him Zarathustra in Russian, but the more common word is Zoroaster. So that's why that's Zoroastrian religion, and it's a Greek word. So in Persian, he was called Zarathustra. So he didn't belong to Persia. He came from India because what happened was, and it's explained, there's a story in Rig Veda about this. In Rig Veda, he's called Jaruta. So Jaruta had this disagreement with Vasishtha Muni. Does anyone know? Does this sound familiar? Vasishtha Muni. He's mentioned in Bhagavatam. So Vasishtha Muni. So first of all, I have a few. So Zoroastrian for you, because not many know the Zoroastrian, right? And as I said, the Vedic, the modern scholars of comparison religion studies, they think that these three, all the Western religions, they're coming from this religion, Zoroastrian religion, and the name of that priest in Greek is Zoroaster and Zarathustra. So, as I said, in Rig Veda, he was Jaruta. So obviously that is the name in Rig Veda. So an interesting thing is that in the Zoroastrian religion, actually, they have their own scripture, which is called Zend Avesta. Zend Avesta it's actually written in a language very, very similar to Sanskrit. Very similar. And also, what I find is very, very interesting is that this scripture, although there's only bits of it is left nowadays, but this scripture also has a story of a conflict between Vasishtha Muni and Jaruta. So both of them were actually worshippers of Varuna. Does anyone know Varuna? Of water. And what else? What else does he has control of? Jewels, interesting. No. That's Kuvera. He also controls the subterranean world. So, you know, like under the Bhumandala, there's all this. So basically, he controls the demons. And in fact, it is actually a story in Krishna book where, if you remember Nanda Maharaj, he was taking a bath and he was taking it a little bit early. So he was seized by Varuna's servants. They were demons. You know, a devotee could never, you know, seize Nanda Maharaj and bring him to Varuna and just say, okay, punish him because he. So anyway, so Varuna is, he has control of the demons. That doesn't make him a demon, but he has control of the demons. So an interesting thing is that Vasishtha, in this scripture, Zendaveshta, is actually called Vahista. Vahista. So you see the S is dropped, and this is what the S is dropped in the name. So in this scripture Zendaveshta, he becomes Vahista. And an interesting thing, like it's how the language is, the Persian language influences Sanskrit, was that oftentimes when you have S and H, S is dropped. And for example, it is said, arguably, that the name Hindustan, this is, it comes from the river Sindhu, you know? So it's supposed to be Sindhustan, right? But the Persian, with the influence of the Muslims, it becomes Hindustan. So that's how, like, Vasishta became Vahishta. Anyway, what happened exactly? So Vasishta, actually, he, as I said, worshipped Varuna, and so did this Jaruta. But Jaruta he was preaching differently. He had a different doctrine. And Vasishta, who, he wouldn't have that, because like Varuna is his father. And we actually read in Bhagavatam, I think recently with my husband, we were reading with 6th canto. I think it's chapter 18 and verse 6, where it actually says that upon seeing the celestial beauty Urvashi, Varuna and Mitra, they discharged semen, and then they kept the semen in 2 pots, and then from those 2 pots, Vasishtha and Agastya Muni came about. So anyway, so Vasishtha was very powerful. He was a very powerful Muni. So he didn't like the doctrine that Jaruta was preaching, so he actually cursed him. It says in Rig Veda, he was cursed. And because of this curse, he was ejected out of the Brahminic Society of India, and that's why he goes all the way to Persia. And that's why he managed successfully to propagate his doctrine. So although these Magis, they were sun worshippers and everything, he convinced them to worship differently. So what exactly, what is the nature of his doctrine and philosophy, and why the Western scholars of comparative religion consider him to be the origin of the Western religion? The interesting thing is that this Jaruta, or Zoroaster, or Zarathustra, so in his doctrine, the significant fact is that, not significant concept, is this concept of a very, very stark dualism. You know, like, of course, we know there's good and bad, whatever, but in his doctrine, this good versus evil was really, really stark. It was the focus of his doctrine. So he preached that there's this all-good God, and his name is Ahura Mazda. And Ahura Mazda, in his language, and the Persian language, it's a very interesting name. We'll come back to it. It's very interesting, actually, the origin of this name. So there's this all-good god called Ahura Mazda, and he is always in a constant battle with a bad god, or an anti-god or something. And his name is actually Angramanyu. And the reason why I mention this is also very interesting, because you will see the resemblance to other names. So we have Ahura Mazda on one hand, and we have this Angramanyu, who is Satan, in fact. So in human beings are in this in between, you know. So there's the good, and the Angramanyu always in the battle with Ahura Mazda. And the interesting thing is that in this concept, which is very, very non-Vedical, that the God doesn't have full control. He doesn't have full control, because there's always this somebody on the other side who is fighting him, and the humans are caught in this battle. That's why the humans, and they're influenced as well. So that's why you have good people, you have evil people that are influenced by either. So that's one very, very strong concept that you would agree. I assume that we have it in Islam, we have it in Judaism, we have it in Christianity. So, and second concept, very, very strong as well, in Jaruta's teaching, is this Judgment Day. We don't have this in the Vedas, right? We do have like Kalki Avatar come and all that, but you know, we kind of learn this gradually, and we know it's this whatever in the end of Kali Yuga. We kind of know the bigger picture. But in Zoroastrian, it was very simple. Okay, you have to follow this religion. You have to be good. You have to worship Ahura Mazda. And then you have to fight the evil. You have to be strong and everything. But sometime in the future, the time will come to an end. The time will come to an end. And the humanity will be judged. They will be resurrected. And then there will be this judgment. And this process starts with the coming of a Messiah. And in Zoroastrian religion, the name of this Messiah is Sioshant. My personal findings, and I didn't find like Suhoja Maharaj didn't speak about it, but what I find is, because I used to study like languages and semantics as well. We have this module in the university called Semantics and Comparison Studies of Different Languages. So if you take this name, Sioshant, which is like a Messiah, we have a word in like Christian, we have Satan. Do you think it's similar? And again, this is my thinking. Please just take it as like personal and maybe just some food for thought. Because when the religion, you know, every religion obviously comes and stays, and then another religion comes up, and then the good guy, the Messiah, becomes the bad guy, and things like that. So we have in Christianity, we have Satan, and in Islam, we have Shaitan. So very interesting, I thought. But anyway, it's just a side thought. So anyway, this Yoshant will come, and he will judge. He will judge everyone, and then the good people will inherit the earth. Right, they will inherit the earth, and they will live happily ever after. It's very kind of general, but then, of course, in all the Christian and Islam and whatever, there's Judaism. We also have this idea of this beautiful gardens filled with nice fruits, and you enjoy that. You have wine, and there's this beautiful girls. You know, of course, in Vedic culture we have apsaras, right? But we know. We devotees, we know that apsaras, they belong to the material world, right? Well, here, it's sort of, you know, it's like it's after the Judgment Day, you know, you become sort of resurrected and live ever after. But the whole concept is still very, very material, you know? So anyway, where was Zoroaster taking all this? Where was he drawing all this thought? So turns out that this name, Ahura Mazda, is actually Asura Maya in Sanskrit. Does anyone ever heard the name Asura Maya? Huh? Mayadanava? Nope. It's actually one of the names of Varuna. Because Maya in this case is power. So Varuna had power over demons. They were serving him. Varuna himself was a devotee, obviously. So he had control of demons. So interesting thing is that this Varuna, and this is translated like Asura Maya is translated as Lord of the demons, right? Not demon himself. So turns out that Jaruta was taking sides of the demons here. And how is it so? So Vasishtha did not preach that Varuna was siding with demons or he was favorable to demons. He didn't teach that. Well, but here, if we look at what Jaruta was saying, it's a little bit different. It's actually very interesting how it turns out. Oh, just to clear absolutely with Varuna. So does anyone know who Varuna actually was? Like, is he one of the 12 Adityas maybe? Right? Does anyone heard about 12 Adityas? Yes, who are they? They're sons of Aditi. And who's Aditi? Anasuya. Who's Aditi? She's the wife of Kashyapa Muni. And who are they, Aditi and Kashyapa? They are Prajapatis, correct. So they're Prajapatis. So it's interesting also in Bhagavatam, in the 12th canto, I found this very interesting because I didn't know it myself. Like in the 12th canto, 11th chapter, I think starting from verse 32 to 45, it is explained that all these 12 Adityas, they take turns in piloting the sun. So, and actually those 12 Adityas, they are powerful expansions of Vishnu in the form of the sun god. So actually what I find interesting is every month that one of those 12 Adityas, Varuna is one of them. In fact, Chandogya Upanishad says that he is the chief of the Adityas. So they in turn pilot the sun. So 1 month for each of the Adityas. So it starts with Dhata, and who presides over the months of Madhu, March and April. And this month is the month of Madhava, and it's Aryama who is presiding. So can anyone name other Adityas? There's 12 of them after all. Vishnu is one of the names, yeah. Does anyone know? Anybody? Mitra, correct. Yeah, Mitra, yes, who was born with Vasishtha Muni. Sorry, so he fathered, Mitra fathered Vasishtha Muni along with, I don't know how it happened, but I explained. Bhagavatam explains how it happened. There's also Indra, and Vivasvan, Pusha, Parjanya, Amshu, Bhaga, Tvashta, and Vishnu. So I find it very interesting that they're very, very powerful personalities. And I know like in Bhagavatam there's funny stories about Indra, but it's not that one Indra, he performs all these tricks sometimes. Different kalpas, different Indras do mistakes. But he is a very, very powerful personality. So he's, as I said, he's like helping to, not helping, actually, they also have, very, very interesting, that each of those Adityas, every month they have 6 associates. One of the associates could be Apsara, and then there would be a sage or a Muni, and then there would be a Naga, and then there would be, what? Demons, that's right, Rakshasas or Yaksha. So every month there's a different. So apparently, and I was just, again, I didn't, there's no commentary. Srila Prabhupada doesn't have any commentaries, but I'm kind of meditating on this and thinking, so why is this? So this concept of good and evil, like for Krishna, I think this is again my thoughts. Really, please object if you feel that I am saying something strange. But when I read, it actually explains in Bhagavatam, I can read if you like, or you can look it up yourself in the 12th canto, that, let's say, Nagas, they are managing the ropes, and then the Yakshasas would be harnessing the chariot, and then the Yakshas and then the Rakshasas will be pulling the chariot from behind. And so my thinking is that because they're serving the Lord himself in this, and that's why they're in this, they're helping the chariot to pull through, and that's their service to Krishna. And that's like, this is how I accepted the fact that kind of strange personalities, I thought, like Rakshasas or Yakshas would be there, very, 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 very elevated position, because they listed, every name of them is listed in Bhagavatam in those verses, which I found very, very interesting. So anyway, now coming back to this Zoroastrian religion. So we come back before, because I promised, this name, Angramanyu, as you remember, which was the Satan. So turns out that Angramanyu is a prototype. His prototype was Brihaspati himself, because one of Brihaspati's name is Angirasa. So turns out that this whole sort of Zoroastrian religion is a little bit of a reversal, not a little bit, a huge reversal, because Ahura Mazda, which is the Lord, wise Lord, he's called, he is the good guy, right? Angramanyu is a Satan. He is, in Rig Veda, he is a Brihaspati. So turns out that their Satan is actually the spiritual master of the demigods. So that's why it's a reversal. And also, it's in Vendaveshta scriptures, the associates of Angramanyu, the Satan, they're called Devas. And the angelic associates of Ahura Mazda, the good guy, the good god, they're called Ahuras. So it is a reversal. So basically what happened, what the teaching that he brought, that this Charuta brought into Persia, was that the powers of light, like asuras, or like suras, like demigods, right? They're actually degraded to the powers of darkness, and the other way around. And it's actually in Zendaveshta, the personalities like Indra or Vayu are called Devas, and in Devas, in Zendaveshta, in this religion, they're actually asuras, so they're demons. So he just took the word Deva, the word Deva comes from Div. Div is light in Sanskrit. So he takes the word, which means light, and gives this to demons. So that's why it was a bit of a, and it was funny, like in the lecture, Suhotra Maharaj says that sometimes, like the Christians say, well, your Krishna is a demon. And he goes, well there's some background to all of this, because in this religion, actually, there was this huge reversal. An interesting thing as well that is pointed out, that in Zoroastrian tradition, there's no allowance for moksha. As we know, we have dharma, right? And then we have artha, the economic development, and then we have kama, and then we have moksha in there. So there's no moksha in Zoroastrian religion. It's very, very materialistic. You're supposed to do your worship. You worship the Ahura Mazda and take the blessings from Ahuras. And then you will live happily ever after. And if you do that, then in the end there's a judgment day, and you'll be judged, and then you'll inherit the earth, with other good people. Very simple. But the interesting thing is also that that celibacy in Zoroastrian religion was forbidden. It was a sin. It was sinful to take. So moksha was out of question. So I thought it was a very, very interesting point as well. And obviously there's teachings like Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ there's no doubt about it that he was teaching some bhakti, right? But in Bhavishya Purana, actually, I believe it is. So Bhavishya Purana, from my heart, I don't know, please correct me if I'm wrong. What I heard is this: the Bhavishya Purana has been altered a few times by the British scholars, so you can't say what is it that's original, because they were adding stuff. Because when the British came, they wanted to picture the Indian religion, obviously, as very, very backwards, exactly. So they were pushing this Christianity as a higher, a more elevated religion. And but anyway, arguably it is said in the Bhavishya Purana that Isha would come to the west of the river Indu, and he would preach to some lechas. And as we know, some lechas they're like untouchables. They're the ones who are outside the Vedic culture. It doesn't matter, the nationality doesn't really matter. What matters is whether you are part of the Vedic culture or not. So that's what makes you, obviously, meat eating and all that, that comes with this. Because in the Vedic culture, even if you eat meat, you eat it as per the Vedas, So anyway, so that's in Bhavishya Purana. And there was some interesting point as well that I heard recently. I can't remember it now. So that's pretty much sums up what I wanted to say. But of course, like in our Vaishnava religion, or philosophy even, or both, we know that worshipping demigods doesn't really give you anything, because as I said, like in what I was reading there, like Krishna is saying, yeah, you can worship demigods, but you're doing it like that's the wrong way to do it. That's the wrong way to worship. And also in Bhagavad Gita 7:21, I'll just read the translation. He also says that I am in everyone's heart as the super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. So even like demigod cannot even create this faith in their devotees without Krishna. Also in 7:22, Krishna says that he who worships the demigods and obtains his desires, but actually these benefits are bestowed by me alone. So even like when demigods offer, like bestow some sort of mercy, whatever, this is still like Krishna gives that, not demigods, because demigods are his instruments. So, and of course, like we understand we should go above this duality. We know there's this good and evil, there's suffering, this and that, there's happiness. We are caught, as humans, we are caught in this duality, but we as Vaishnavas, we know we should go above, we should transcend all this duality. We should just rise above it. And through the mercy of Krishna, of Lord Chaitanya, we got the process, we got the method how to do that. And of course, our method is to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I conclude here. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any thoughts or objections? Maybe I said something wrong. Please forgive me. Yes. The second part of the lecture. What's the second part of that? It's interesting. Well, he's talking about Tantrism as well. Very interesting. I thought it was a very interesting concept. Like he looks at the modern religions, and he's saying that they actually all come from Tantra. And Tantra, of course, in India, this right Tantra and this left Tantra, left-hand Tantra. But anyway, Next time, maybe. I should look into this. It's a very, very interesting subject as well. Yeah. Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. So a nice example of what you were saying about demigods receiving their potency from the Lord. I watched a video by Bhakti Charu Swami many years ago, and he mentioned that Lord Ganesha actually receives his potency from Lord Nrsimhadev, and that his head rests at the lotus feet of Lord Nrsimhadev. Lord Nrsimhadev removes the obstacles from our spiritual path, but Lord Ganesha removes the obstacles from our material path. So I thought that was a very nice example of what you mentioned.
Yeah. Yes, is this a tricky question?
Amazing. Last, really, that was a part that was really nice.
Okay.
My question is, it goes back to the time when you said he had a misunderstanding with Vasishta, and he's trying to promote this new philosophy. Like, I suppose the question is, we know, like, whether it's, other than Vyasadeva, who was really trying to preach personalism and bhakti yoga, Gautama, Kannada, the other systems, they use the Vedic literature and they turn it to the way that they want, and they had a certain goal. So what did he use? Like this person,
Zarathustra.
Jaruta. So what did he use the scripture to justify his preaching? I mean, like, if it is a parampara, what did he use for?
I mentioned the scriptures and Avesta, and it doesn't say, like Suhotra Maharaj, he didn't say things that he wasn't sure of, because there's only bits and pieces of this scriptures left. But looks like he was the one who was Avesta, that's the name, that he was the author, one of the authors of the scripture, because it does mention the conflict between Vasishta and himself. So, but I don't know, because in my opinion, I think so, yeah. Because he was, as I said, he was a Varuna worshipper, and because Varuna also, like, he presides over the subterranean world, and obviously we know, like from Srimad Bhagavatam, how powerful the demons could be, and also they are like very, very beautiful lokas, planets there in the subterranean. They enjoy that. Demons enjoy. It actually says in Bhagavatam, enjoy more than on the upper planets. You know what I mean? So I'm not surprised that somebody would be, very kind. That's why Vasishtha ejected him, because there's no moksha. He doesn't want moksha. All he wants is just to enjoy, and this is what he brought to Persia. And obviously, because we're so, humans, and we, that's very appealing. That's very appealing to anyone. Like, you ask anyone.
So
who wants to enjoy?
Concept of spiritual world at all?
Zoroastrian, no. And then, I think, that's the point that I wanted to bring up. Even in Christianity, he could have some spiritual part of it, in Zoroastrian religion. We don't know that, but what we do know is that in Christian religion, for centuries, there was this a discussion, very heated discussion between the Christianity fathers about this judgment day. So some would say that it is actually the spirit that through the grace of Jesus Christ will resurrect from the body and will be judged and all that. But others would be saying, no, it is actually the material body that is dead and rotting in the ground will be resurrected and made whole and judged, and that concept won. So, and it's even like this. I think it's Augustine. Augustine's a pretty famous name. He's one of the church fathers. Like, he was asked. Like, one of the arguments was, "Oh, come on, there's some children, like newborn, whatever, or old people. let's say, die, when they are resurrected and judged, what bodies are they given? Do they remain like a child all the time, or an old man? Like, how fun is that? And but he said, no. Everyone will be given a body of a 30-year-old person. So where he's getting this information, like, you wouldn't know. So I believe this is all made up. You know. Precisely, yes. So this has been going on. Yeah, I read a lot about that as well. Like, I heard about, like, from the Russian preachers, that they go into this because it's very interesting. Because it used to be the concept of the spirit. In fact, like, even in, like, I won't go into. So anyway, it's this. There was this discussion for centuries, and it's the materialists who have won because it's much simpler concept. You know what I mean? It's very simple, but it doesn't mean that it didn't exist. You know. So, thank you very much. All right, Prabhu.
In 554, they had a meeting in Constantinople. Christian had a meeting in Constantinople. And I think the Pope at the time was Pope Gregory.
Yeah.
Right, at the time. I asked my wife.
Yeah, Pope Gregory.
Okay. Verify that. And at that meeting, they decided that they were going to do away with reincarnation.
Right.
Right? That they all agreed. But prior to that, all the religions believed in reincarnation.
Yeah.
And I mean the Abrahamic religions. And these will make Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, and the Jews. Yeah. They are the origin. It's Abraham who is origin. Has brought about these three other religions.
Yeah.
But if you look deep into it, you know, take Islam for that matter. There are three subdivisions in Islam.
Yeah.
You got the Sunnis, the Shiites, and the Sufis. Right? Of the three, the Sufis were the only one that were deep in thought and paid more attention to the, but the other two did not, because they thought it was okay for those higher thinking people.
Yeah.
And that's where Sufism comes in, and it's mainly Iran and around that area there.
Yeah. Went to Turkey.
Yeah.
Sufis, they went to from Muslims they fled.
So then that's it. That put end to reincarnation at the meeting of 554 in Constantinople.
Yeah. So it's very interesting, isn't it? How gradually over time the spirituality was getting less and less spirituality in religion, and what it stands is actually this worship or whatever, like just religion as a church institution. That's why so many people are disillusioned now and disappointed. You know, they don't want to go to the church because it's just empty. You know, there's no spirituality in it. And of course, like the modern church, like even Christian church, they're giving up like one after another, like things like, even remember like the gay marriages they had to allow just to give concession to the modern trend. You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter whether it coincides with a belief or not. Just they institutionalize, they become okay, like we accept it. So it's not based on Shastra or anything like that. But
there's one other point about Christ being killed on the cross.
Yeah.
And then he
resurrected.
He's resurrected 3 days later.
Yeah.
But according to Prabhupada, you cannot kill a yogi.
You cannot kill a yogi.
You cannot kill a yogi.
Yeah.
But of course, the Christians at the time thought, well, he was dead, and now he comes back again. And this and that.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think Prabhupada, I heard, Prabhupada was asked, it's like about the ruler, who was Jesus Christ? And he said, Jesus Christ was a sage. You know, like, and also in in Bhagavatam, second canto, it is explained that there's, in Brahmaloka, there's lots of sages who live, and they're in this state of blissful satisfaction, but due to compassion in their hearts, they sometimes descend. They descend, and the compassion is for the fallen human souls, you know, humans who have degraded themselves, so they fall down sometimes to teach them some principles of Dharma. So Srila Prabhupada answered one of the questions like that. So he was a Brahman, he was a sage, a Muni, who lived.
Because from the age of 12 to 38, to 30,
Yeah.
people didn't have a clue as to where Christ was.
Mm.
But in fact, as a young boy, he went to the caravanserai. You know what a caravanserai
Mm-hmm.
is?
Caravanserai, yeah.
They went like with Marco Polo. You must have heard, I don't know how many people you had with Marco Polo.
Yeah.
Marco Polo, right? Everybody had Marco. He went to them, everywhere he went, he preached.
Mm.
And he spent 6 years in Jagannath Puri.
Yeah.
Spent 6 years
Mm.
there. And he was in Tibet and he was in Nepal.
Yeah.
That's where, why he went away. My view is that why he went away. If he stayed in Judea,
Yeah.
and he preached there, he'd been killed.
Yeah.
So he went out to get more knowledge and become older and more responsible.
Mm-hmm.
And in that way, even at that, they still tried to kill him after he came back.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. You cannot kill a yogi, that's a good one.
Yeah, Haribol Mataji, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for this interesting class.
Mm.
Yeah, thank you again.
This Christianity, this religion, they have very strong preaching techniques.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know much about Western world how they preach here, but in India, what they do that they open schools,
Mm-hmm.
they open hospitals, and in this way, they try to spread themselves there. So very strong technique.
Yeah.
And as you said, that everything materialistic. So the moment Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started, yeah, and Prabhupada brought it in Western world, can we take this technique as part of our spreading? In this way, what we will be offering, that with materialism we will be offering spirituality, what is lacking here in India. So can we make this technique as part of our preaching?
To build hospitals and schools. Well, I think we're the minority here, unfortunately. I think you need a lot of money to do that sort of thing, to build the hospitals and things. I think the way, and again, this is my personal opinion, we do have challenges, in our movement as well, for looking after, let's say, older devotees who cannot look after themselves, for example. So I think we should get it right. And I think if we get that bit right, then we might go and do what the Christians are doing. But unless we do that, then I think, and also schools as well, they're not available. I'm sure, I have 4 grandchildren. I'd love to bring them to Gurukul, if it was somewhere nearby, I'd love to bring them. But there isn't one. So, but what we can do, we can organize them ourselves, but that's a huge endeavor. It's really, really huge. I think we're still small, we're very small, and it is, after all, what Prabhupada brought. It's a Brahminic culture, isn't it? He was trying to get as many Brahmanas as possible, because I think to do things like you do, you need Vaishyas, obviously you need cash, and you need people who can do things. You need Varnashrama, to be honest. But what we are here doing, it's more like Brahminic culture, we learn the Shastra, we meditate, we do all these things. So unless we become a very, very big kind of prosperous movement with lots of cash on hand, then it's not possible. That's my personal opinion. I don't know, maybe somebody else like Divya Shakti has anything better to say than me.
Never used such methods.
Mm.
Never said we
Mm.
should build hospitals and school, never himself. Just I think that would be just very materialistic way of solving. Even if it's not even solving any problems. It's very inferior towards the way he used to preach, just chanting the holy name, just spread the
some opulence, for some materialistic achievements, it may be the way to say that that movement has something to offer, but it's not something that Srila Prabhupada would do.
Well, that's a very, very good point, actually. Like we read in Bhagavad Gita, I forgot where this verse is, when Krishna is actually saying, like, because when Arjuna is confused, like, oh, Krishna, you're telling me do yoga and do this and do that, and I'm confused. And then Krishna explains a little bit more, and then he said, like, if you cannot, let's say, if you cannot think of me, if you cannot surrender and think of me all the time, right? Well, then you can do something else. You can work for me, for example. You can work for me and things. So that would be, but that's just a step down. You know what I mean? So with Prabhupada, he gave us the first one. You know, the first option. What Krishna is saying, like man manab bhavamat bhakto. You know, think of me, like become my devotee. This is what Srila Prabhupada was teaching. But I do agree, like if we can't, it feels right, and it feels like we want this. We want to be like a powerful part of the society, you know, where we contribute and we can proudly say, oh, we do this, we can, as a hospital, we help people. But it is also like in Bhagavad Gita, this is all like charity. So it's material charity, you know. The ultimate charity, after all, is what? It's giving Krishna to somebody, you know. So that's why the ultimate Sankirtan, you know, this is the best you can do for anyone, you know. Better than a hospital, better than a school. Give him, you know, the holy name. This is what our philosophy is about. So that's probably why this will not manifest at some point. But it does manifest, isn't it? Like Radhanath Swami is doing things like that, you know. Or yeah, in Hungary, like Shivaram goes, oh, God bless him. Maybe we should sing kirtan, some kirtan for Shivaram Goswami for his health, I think.
Taking his point further on, Prabhupada objected totally to the building of schools and all these things.
Yeah.
He objected to it totally. One of the senior devotees in the late 60s asked Prabhupada, can we let our children go to ordinary schools to be educated?
Yeah.
He totally objected to that.
Yeah.
He said, no, you have gurukuls, and that's it. We'll follow that route. Yeah. So we're totally dead against that. I forget the name of the senior devotee in the late 60s.
Yeah, so what you're saying, like we should build schools, but it shouldn't be like regular schools. We should build gurukuls. So ultimately, yeah, it comes down to, yeah, let's just give Krishna. That's the ultimate benediction to anyone, you know, not helping them heal their wounds or whatever. Or give them some material education, but give them Krishna, give them the holy name. That's what we can bring. This is what Prabhupada wanted. So thank you, Divya Shakti, thank you.
One more point. Unfortunately, the state of Kerala, I say Kerala, but they say Kerala.
So you mean the state in India?
Yeah, South India.
Yeah.
South and West.
Yeah. Oh, that's a Christian influence.
The lower two,
yeah.
Tamil Nadu and the Christians, they have given them lots of schools and lots of hospitals and lots of and they shower them. Yeah. And it's a underground way of converting people. Yeah.
But actually, you're bringing a very good point, because look, this didn't give them any good results. Like the churches here are empty, you know. So they can shower, like bring them like with cash and try to buy them with schools and this, but this doesn't give them the devotees, so to speak, you know.
Because you see,
so the churches are empty now. Like look at here in Ireland, it's actually pitiful what's happening in Ireland.
Yeah, because when I used to speak to the nurses in the hospital, and they were from India. Yeah. And I said, where are you from? And 9 out of 10 would tell me that they're from the state of Kerala. And the Hindus,
because they're educated,
Hindus but converted to Christianity.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do?
Yeah.
Especially in small villages, this conversion is more.
Yeah.
They're giving lots of material properties.
Yeah.
The same is there in, you know, even with the Muslims, in Islamic countries, you get the benefit of being in Islam that you wouldn't get if you were a minority or a Muslim.
Bribery.
Yes.
Bribery.
It's not like, again, they're not making devotees. It is for materialistic gain.
Yeah.
And here with
Yeah.
altruism. Those are the
Yeah.
words Prabhupada said. You're not into that at all. It's just
Yeah, yeah.
chanting.
Yeah, in fact, in one of the commentaries that I read recently, Prabhupada called, like, when some sannyasi, he was just saying, some big sannyasi in India starts doing some philanthropic projects, and he calls us a fall down. He calls us a fall down. So a big sannyasi engaging in philanthropic activities, it's a big fall down, because that's not what he's supposed to do. Yes, Prabhu.
To Prabhu's question. So Mauritius, this is causing a big issue about converting people, especially. They're using techniques such as, like, people when they are ill, they're going to try to, when they're in the worst moment, that's when they're going to give them that go. And now, even like we're using the word kirtan to bring people to church to convert them, which all the Hindu were on the street.
All right.
Saying that if this go ahead, there's going to be like communal racist war and things like that. So yeah, they are, when people are very sick or people are desperate, they're going knocking on their doors trying to convert those people to Christianity.
But at the present moment in Kerala, they are kidnapping Hindu women and converting them and sending them to different countries.
Oh my God.
And they're not. This is happening at the moment. And they're trying to do something about it.
Trafficking.
Yeah, trafficking, yeah.
No, but I mean, the church is doing this. The church is doing this.
The Middle East.
No, these are the people of Islam. They capturing them and sending them to different countries and getting them married and converting them to Islam.
Oh, right. Oh, that's what you mean. Yeah, well, God bless, we're not in we're not in Christians or Jews or that's Prabhupada's mercy.
I heard a lecture yesterday, Prabhupada, same topic. Prabhupada said the Mughals came and they dominated India on the strength of swords and weapons, and Christians on the strength of money and power. But I am an old man. I went and I just gave Harinam. And through this I dominated. Harinam dominated the Western world.
Last point, when Prabhupada was in Durban in South Africa, one of his own disciples asked him, why did Krishna let the Muslims come into India?
Yeah.
You know the answer of that?
Why?
He said, because you people were weak. You weren't able to repel them. It's your fault. You don't blame Krishna. Don't bring Krishna into this picture. It's your fault. He's not an order supplier.
Yes,
I
please.
just remember this famous quote from the Bible. If you want to feed someone, you can give them a fish, but it will just temporarily solve the problem of hunger. But if you teach them how to
fish, you feed them for the rest of their life.
So that's the same with Prabhupada, that he didn't just give the fish.
Shall we conclude here?
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.